Hey guys, Youngblood Fantasy 91 here with another commentary for you wonderful people. Well, I'm finally doing it. After finding out from Guptill that I, for some godforsaken reason, was worth responding to, I felt it would only be fitting to respond to the completely misguided retorts he had to my arguments, considering they had a warped perception about the nature of real life as we know it. Now, instead of doing a commentary on Guptill, what I will do instead is respond to each of his arguments by inserting cutaway scenes so that I can interject and try to counter his points, all the while deriding his abilities to try to appear more intelligent than he actually is. Oh, wait. And by the way, fat bottom logos make the rockin' world go round. I'll listen in and I'll see what I have to say about this. I feel the fire here is a direct metaphor for what I'm about to do in this commentary. Burn his arguments to the ground by using actual logic. By the way, I really enjoy the smirk on this guy's face too. It's as if he's under the delusion that everything he says is automatically right, and if you disagree with him, you will feel the full brunt of his fury. Incarnations of it include being blocked, removing video comments, and removing channel comments. Ain't that intimidating?
What do you know? I have encountered someone who is actually worth my time. Youngblood Fantasy 91.
I don't know whether to be honored by this or not. On one hand, you seem to like me for some inexplicable reason. On the other hand, the only reason why you thought I was worth your time was because of your prominent egotism. I mean, you literally cherry-picked me out of plenty of other people who I feel should also be worth your time. But given that your common sense on here is almost non-existent, I'm not surprised you let plenty of legitimate criticism fly over your head like this.
Recently, he constructed a commentary on Ranterek Shorts number 4, The Unimportance of Change. It was detailed, he was soft-spoken, and he had some interesting points to bring up.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Guptill. You know, maybe you're not such a bad person after all. I mean, let's face it, I could look over the whole you not taking criticism and you having obsessions with female anthropomorphic characters bit, if you did not say what's coming afterward.
Now, many of them I disagree with, and that is why I was determined to make this response to him.
The operative word here, determined, as in you were very, very, very desperate to save face and try to refute me, even if you wanted to in the worst possible way. Well, I'm here to say this. Your refutations are pretty mediocre, therefore hinting at how chagrined and upset you were when you realize that your reasoning has been stymied for the billionth time.
Now, instead of doing a commentary on a commentary, what I'll do instead is list the most important arguments and give my thoughts about them. Without any further ado, let's dive in.
Yes, let's dive into your video where you take my statements and insert cutaway scenes so that you can interject with your points and try to counter my arguments. Oh, wait. And I'm going to skip my parts and go directly to Guptill because the original commentary I did on him is still up, and I think you guys are smart enough to go back and review what I said. To avoid confusion, I'll add subtitles to illustrate what Guptill is responding to in each instance.
Okay, people, here's what you need to have hammered into your brains. If you describe someone as pretty and sometimes hot, it does mean attractive, but not in a mounting sexual way.
This argument has been minced to death by other commentators, so all I have to say is this. The dictionary, Guptill, is your best friend.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted...
Actually, so is the thesaurus, because apparently it has an entry for the sexually excited definition of hot. Incontrovertible evidence there, Guptill.
Sorry, Jamin, but your argument falls flat on its face.
He said
and to
face.
add to that, by your own logic, it seems to me that if anybody describes anything as hot, including a stylish backpack or a pen, people are going to cast horrified looks on them and think, "Dear God, he wants to do that backpack! Somebody call security!"
Wow, Guptill, the histrionics in your statement were astounding. And that is a poor interpretation about how people think. Most people are familiar with the word hot and use it in the proper context, such as when they say that backpack is hot, it means it's in vogue. The thesaurus strikes again. So it seems to me, Guptill, that you are not familiar with the word hot or its connotations, and that to me is pretty pathetic.
Besides, as long as the anthropomorphic character looks humanoid and is fictional, why does it matter? Quit acting like they're real.
I appreciate your indignant tone, insane man, but that's the reason why people are saying you are a sonic female obsessed freakazoid, because you labeled certain characteristics of these characters as hot when we all know that they are fake characters created by a team of artists and animators, and that hints at the idea that you are sexually turned on by these characters. Either you're flinging words around not knowing what they mean, or you're making the characters even more real than you erroneously believe we're doing. So evidently, you're projecting your anger on us, and that is a Freudian defense mechanism that hints at denial.
Youngblood, there is a difference between nitpicking and majorly criticizing something. Throughout the whole presentation, I have been criticizing major stuff.
What major stuff do you mean? The Tropicana logo changing? The Nike logo losing the word Nike when everyone damn well knows that the swoosh logo is just as easily recognized? I find that nitpicking because it appears to be an inconvenience only to you, as a person. Plenty of other people can get by with these changes, unless if they were just as Village Green Preservation Society as you, or they simply don't pay attention. And either way, that's an error on their part and the fault lies with them, not the company who changed the logo.
Nitpicking, on the other hand, is arguing about a change that is so tiny, it wouldn't make any sense to criticize it.
But that's exactly what you did when you brought up the Mountain Dew logo's changes. But I will get to how he reacts to that in a minute. And let me just say, it's priceless.
Take, for example, the new Nintendo seal. It still has the same font and oval, but it's white. It used to be red and nothing else. If someone complained about that, that would be the proper definition of nitpicking. A major revision would be taking the words orange juice, changing them to OJ, and removing the picture of the orange or oranges.
First of all, the Nintendo example you presented was pretty much what you did when you criticized the Dunkin' Donuts sign in the building. The Dunkin' Donuts font remained the same, the general design remained the same, but they included more of an orange background in their logo, which is what you are saying that the Nintendo seal did. Change color and nothing else. Therefore, what you said was flawed. And the OJ example was flawed too, because the information that you kept in the illustration is enough to give people the idea that, hey, not from concentrate, OJ, it has to be orange juice. Honestly, it's as if you think the average Joe is the densest person on the planet with no reasoning skills whatsoever. Give people some slack.
Here's what you don't understand. If you take the design of a product and then warp it around, you're not going to identify it as quickly as you could before. Heck, some people might not notice it at all.
And the discrepancy that you propose in terms of identification time must be minimal at best because there hasn't been any news about logo confusion or people getting angry because of logo on a product change. It may take some more time to get used to the new design, but I don't think people are going to say, whoop, the text has been moved slightly to the left, the product is now a mystery to me. Again, assuming people are completely addle-brained speaks volumes about your reasoning abilities.
If you took a closer look at the difference between the old and new Tropicana cartons, the name of the brand is right where it needs to be on the old one, but on the second one, the words 100% orange stands out way more than the name of the brand turned sideways.
Yes, the 100% orange is emphasized, but the Tropicana name is still there. Sure, it's turned 90 degrees. Sure, it's a bit different, but that doesn't make the product alien to anybody. It just means the product design was altered. Honestly, if you can't see that the label is there, then you are either blind, which is something you cannot help, or you're the most unobservant person on the face of the earth, which seeps into uncanny valley and renders your argument inconceivable, Guptill.
Thankfully, however, the designers realized the problem and transfigured it back to what it should look like. In the product world, you are going to need to judge it by the cover anyway.
First of all, why do you think Tropicana should look like the way you presented it here? Because you are a self-centered tool? That's the only way to describe why you labeled the design as such, because it conformed to your preferences. And let me check, there are almost 7 billion other people in this world who lead completely independent lives from you, and by association have different levels of reasoning. And of course, some of them are going to judge the product, but not to the point where it will be a black and white situation where if the logo is slightly changed, they will reject the product because the label is scrunched to one side. That's entirely superficial, and again, that idea also lives in Uncanny Valley with your belief that everyone is a dunderhead.
This is the only argument that I agree with. The reason I compared those two pictures together is because I thought that MTN would perplex some persons. Little did I know, I was being a bit of an idiot.
It takes a strong man to admit your mistakes, but you completely contradicted the premise in the video. You said in the beginning, I am going to contradict all of his arguments. I am determined to do this. Now suddenly you feel one of my arguments is valid. Where's the determination, Guptill? Did it vanish alongside your rationales for lambasting slight logo changes on the grounds of doing this to satisfy your self-serving bias on the issue?
True, Nike is widely recognized by millions of individuals, yet when you don't have the name on the trademark, sooner or later, someone might ask what the name of it is.
And like I said in my original commentary, there is something called the internet where you can look up the swoosh logo and get an answer in, this time, 0.14 seconds. And Wikipedia even attests to it being the most recognizable logo brands in the world. So there is a very slim chance that people are going to question what swoosh means, since again, it all falls back on commercialism and its influence on the human psyche.
And quite frankly, I think the populace hate asking that type of question. Also, a couple of other corporations have a design similar to the Nike swoosh, such as Brooks,
which looks like a blue deformed 7 rather than a swoosh, and which only has one tapered end while the swoosh logo has two.
Saucony,
which looks like a collapsed S with bullet holes, and the top seems to be pushed down, thus not making it a swoosh-shaped or check-shaped.
And Mizuno,
which looks like the swoosh logo if the tapered edges were shaved off, and then the whole design was placed on a pedestal that seemed to have merged with the shaved swoosh. In all three instances, I have observed recognizable qualitative differences between the Nike logo and the three examples presented here, and I'm sure other people can do the same. But since you underestimate human intelligence, Guptill, apparently that's not possible, is it?
In other words, Youngblood, your argument is kind of irrelevant.
Well, so is yours, but you don't see me gloating about it.
If you look at some of the other running shoes insignias, they're all conveniently labeled with the name of the product right there. Nike doesn't retain that trait, which it should have.
First of all, Nike is one of the most well-known brands in the world. The other logos are recognizable but not as universal as Nike, and besides, the logos that each brand has here, such as New Balance, can actually be used independent of the logo because what else does NB stand for? Nastily bad? Oh wait, that's you. But let's drop the levity for a second. Do you honestly think that Nike is supposed to have a design that conforms to your self-serving bias? Nike is not going to consult you on logo changes, Guptill, and neither will New Balance or Basics when they decide to change their logos. So again, your egotism destroys your argument. I really hope you understand this.
Well, see how the name is scrunched in between the word performance and the nutrition facts? Not to mention it's gray, like the other words. It actually seems to blend in.
First of all, it's not like the word Gatorade is the same shade of gray as the rest of the background, so you are exaggerating. I can clearly see the word Gatorade here, and let's not forget, the Gatorade logo has the classic Thunderbolt, ever since the product's inception. And what other energy drink can you think of that starts with the letter G that has been around for a while? For that matter, what other sports drinks can you think of that starts with the letter G? Riddle me that, Guptill.
Believe it or not, my stepdad had trouble finding Gatorade drinks. I'm dead serious.
Either your stepdad is not that observant and cannot locate the product label, or he found it after some time. Eventually he found the product, right? So what does that prove? That means that he had to have found the logo eventually and realized that it was Gatorade. And I'm sure that since you have a tendency to exaggerate everything, it was only a couple of seconds for him to figure out it was Gatorade. Look, the way you use hyperbole in almost every sentence you spurt out makes me disinclined to take your examples at face value. So either way, what you said was immaterial to the discussion.
Well, it very well seems that way now.
So you feel that corporations are pandering to those who wish for things to never change? Because that is what I said there. If that were the case, Gatorade and Nike would be on their knees to hear what magical wisdom you have on their logo designs, and they would be forever in your debt. I feel that there was a lack of understanding there, Guptill, but since your video is riddled with this, I am not surprised.
Probably, but you should keep in mind that Smith wasn't a few centuries ahead of his time. The drawback with his Wealth of Nations inquiry is that it doesn't take into account scheming unnecessarily. Therefore, much industry is ignoring his principles.
Okay, that argument would be valid if you talked about corporations and the actions of the major players of the corporation. However, we're not talking about the ethics of corporate action, we're talking about logos. So switching the scope of the discussion, Guptill, is an indirect cop-out on your part.
Preceding ads didn't have a theme almost identical to What's G, Youngblood. The ads usually involved running, throwing balls, striking pucks, and so on.
Well, hey, it's not my problem if the commercial features athletes that endorse the beverage. That might as well be considered a sports beverage. That is a sports beverage starting with the letter G. That has been around for a long time. Hey, look at me, I'm using my common sense and attention to detail to figure this out. The themes may be slightly different, but I said that they were similar, not identical, in the sense that they did use athletes. Besides, the commercial did not last that long anyway, so either way, if it did confuse some people, the problem was resolved.
It also exhibited the beverage usually by way of somebody washing it down and developing colorful sweat. What's G, on the other hand, just features a long row of stationary athletes and a stylish letter G at the end. If the promoter does not display the object that describes the product, confusion is going to occur even if you don't expect it to.
If you employed common sense, much like how I did, you would be able to figure it out easily. There are athletes, there is a G, there is a Thunderbolt. What more do you want? An ad saying, "This is Gatorade, now buy it." I don't know about you, but I'm sure people would not be stupid enough to think of that as a legitimate ad for the product. Besides, this is not the first time that certain ads were being indirect with the presentation of their product. You're probably confusing Gatorade's former brand of advertising with false advertising, when we all know full well that it cannot be the case, given that I use my common sense. Unfortunately, you seem to lack it. And that's the end of part 1. Tune in for part 2 of Guptill's video, which will come out very soon. This is Youngblood Fantasy 91, and ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all in the brighter later.
God save strawberry jam with all the different varieties.